Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment of our program is brought to you by Games and Things. When it comes to home theater seating as March Madness approaches, Games and Things offers the best quality seats you can find in Knoxville. I bought my last pair there, and I must have studied a dozen different chairs because they have all kinds of options. And after making what was a very tough decision between their great options, I've been thrilled. They do good stuff. They have great stuff there at Games and Things, not to mention the fact their showroom is a fun place to be. So life should be fun. They help you make it fun. OurGameRoom.com to learn more or get out and visit them. Corner of Lovell Road and Kingston Pike out in West Knoxville. Games and Things. Been doing it for more than 40 years. All right, let's welcome in the next two members of our panel right here to talk a little football. We have longtime sports writer, longtime friend of the program, Bob Hodge. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
The beard's coming back nicely.
My wife doesn't think so.
It's coming back scraggly. Right over there, David Ubben. David Ubben from The Athletic. Thanks for being back with us, David.
Appreciate it. I hope to one day be able to grow a beard, Bob. So that's good.
Very good. With construction at Neyland Stadium, everyone assumed Tennessee would simply take their orange and white game over to Nashville this year. They'd get a waiver from the NCAA to where they could deal with recruits. All good. Now it's starting to look more iffy. Questionable as to whether or not they even have one, but if you do have one, not sure that you'll be able to have contact with recruits who are there. If you do one in Nashville, you still don't get the benefit of showing off your facilities and your campus to recruits and to parents. And if you do it in Nashville, it's probably going to be midway through spring practice and not at the end of spring practice. Anyway, my question, do you really need a spring game? If they wind up saying, we just can't make it work, legit, not to mention the fact you're going to have to pack up everybody over here, get the hotels, you're going to have to take referees, everybody, all the regular game staff like a road game. Is it a big thing if you can't do it? Is it a huge loss if you can't do it?
Not like it would have been 2 decades ago. I think now it's just the world has changed with these things. And I think if you look at look at how they play the spring game.
Right.
You can go and it's a different set of rules and all this different stuff. So I just don't think it's as big a deal as it used to be because think about it. Before television, before 24/7 news, you go there in the spring game, that's the only chance you get to see your team that one time in a 9-month period. I just think you see them on TV, a lot of reporting, a lot of coverage, a lot of guys like Dave doing things. I just don't think it's that big of a deal anymore.
And it was also a real scrimmage.
Yes, it was a game.
One versus one.
Right.
It was a true scrimmage. And most of them now, it's like, okay, you're on Team Orange for this series. Now come over here and, you threw the ball in the buckets. That's worth 3 touchdowns and a field goal.
I think there's value in it, especially from the fan perspective. Maybe you can exercise some demons at Nissan Stadium as well. But I think the biggest thing is that this is not last year where fans hadn't seen it because you look at the juice they had coming out of the spring game last year. People didn't really know what to expect. You kind of hear about up-tempo offense, but seeing it, people were pretty excited, throwing the ball downfield, all those things. One idea they might want to run by, Iowa State is running some open practices at high schools in the area. That's not the worst idea I've ever heard. ABC, the number one rule of college football, always be recruiting, and that can help you. So,
Jimmy, you talked to Danny White. His thoughts on whether or not this thing actually happens.
They're not 100% sure that they will have a spring game, and they are looking at Nashville, and they're looking at sites in Nashville just other than Nissan Stadium, just to try to figure out what they could do. They would like a presence there for recruiting if they can work that out. Don't know if they can, but I don't think it's a major blow. I'm kind of in Bob's camp. 2 decades ago, I think it was more important. Nowadays, I don't think it's that huge a deal. You do like the coverage you might get on the SEC network, but they're not even sure, from what I've been told, and not just Danny White, but others within the program, they're not even sure they're going to have a spring game.
Chuck,
is
it a big deal?
The same way. Even the people who've tried to go to some of these spring games with the scoring that if you break up a pass, it's 5 points or something, or if you do this or do that, some of the people that have gone have gotten bored and left. That was in the past. I still was in the camp of I wish you could go to like Tennessee Tech and scrimmage them, or if you could bring somebody in that instead of having them on your regular schedule, that probably isn't going to happen.
So you couldn't do that this year.
You couldn't do that
That's
this year.
Involved
so I
changes.
don't really see going to Nashville. I like the idea of an open practice.
Exactly, open practice, have a fans day around it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the stuff they usually do before the spring game, have people in, you meet some guys, get autographs, et cetera.
I mean, I think going, Memphis, Nashville, a couple spots here doing open practices, go to, a big school in Memphis, go to somewhere, in Nashville, take your pick of, they might have some big time players in the 2023 class, coincidentally. But again,
Yeah. We're
ABC,
showing up in Dyersburg for
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
There happens to be somebody coming out of there. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the Big Orange Caravan spring game.
The two things that I think you'll miss, one is, Jim mentioned it, ESPN, the SEC network, with the new contract, they're carrying all of the SEC spring games this year. I don't know how many recruits watch that, but that was another chance to talk about Heupel's incredible offense and show off Hendon Hooker. So you lose out on that. But the bigger thing is, and I think you'd lose out on this anyway because you'd need an NCAA waiver to allow you to talk to recruits. Josh Heupel has inherited yet another. I mean, he just inherited such a mess here. He did a great job stepping around all the landmines that were left for him last year. And now you get to your spring game in year 2, and we're redoing the stadium for you so you can have recruits on campus for a spring game. That's tough. I mean, I do hate that for him because it's like, you talk about a guy that just, he walked under a ladder and a black cat walked in front of him when he took this job.
And then the mirror fell.
And then the mirror fell and broke. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a rough break for Josh Heupel.
If there's a
that-
way
that
to
you're
do
having
it
to
here,
deal with
you
it.
wish they could do it here. But if there's
Sure.
not, then you just have to figure out the best plan B.
Could you not have thought of something ahead of this point? I mean, didn't they know the construction was
Well,
coming?
I think that's so high up the list that it trumps just about everything else.
For,
in terms of
for
what's
novelty's
important.
sake, I'd like to watch a spring game in a stadium under construction. Talk about dodging landmines, dodging potholes, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd watch that, I gotta say.
You're going to stretch a giant black curtain across the one half of the field.
The old one they used to use at Thompson Bowling
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah.
You could still play the game, you just wouldn't have fans. I mean, play it over on a practice
Put it
field.
on television. And you
Put it
could.
on television.
Of course, what does that? Well, it's not like you get a big crowd noise to support it on television anyway.
Right.
That'd
You
bring
know.
back flashbacks of 2020,
But
wasn't
could
it?
you do that and then bring in your recruits?
What if they had 10,000? They could announce 50.
Do that all, or more than all fall. All right. When we come back, 4 Tennessee Vols are invited to the NFL Combine. Let's talk about their draft stock. How are those guys going to be drafted in order? That's next on the Sports Source. Coming back.